Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast, also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets Podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is an amazing way for you to exit highly appreciated assets, defer capital gains tax, eliminate the need for the 1031 exchange so you can create and preserve more wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, and leadership minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspirations, together make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Hey, I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of the great state of Pennsylvania, and he gets paid to purchase, monetize, and generate revenue from properties. He also has a couple podcasts and YouTube channels, and he's involved in multiple real estate entities as an owner or equity partner. In all of them, his primary role is the interactions with other people. He negotiates the sale with current homeowners, and he also manages crews to renovate properties. And then he helps to place tenants and resell properties. And so we're going to be talking about how to build multiple income streams. Please welcome to the show with me, Joe Rockey Jr. Joe, how are we doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. For our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, sure. So it's a long one to try to keep it short here. I came out of college with the double major in accounting and finance. I basically knew that skills are what pay the bills and theories don't really do anything. So what skills are more important than every company needs to know where their money is? That's basically what accounting is. And you need to know how to get more money. That's what finance comes into play. And most importantly, all of my jobs I had during college and really my entire life have been in sales. So between those three entities, I can pretty much run any business I wanted. It then became down to what were we going to do? I wanted residual income. I knew I wanted to get paid for when I was old for work I did when I was younger. That was basic. When I was coming out of college, it was in the last recession. So I ended up foregoing on some opportunities at some good accounting firms, thinking I'd always get the next best one. Well, that was great until the recession really sunk in and people who were in my class were getting those opportunities taken back from them. I ended up signing up with a firm that sells life insurance and annuities because they'll take anyone who can sell anything. And that was the whole plan: build residuals through the form of life insurance and annuities. I was good at it. First year, I was rookie of the year. Second year, I was underclassman of the year. Third year, I left in part because it took me 3 years to read the residual contract, where I was getting paid 0.1% of what I sold. Said another way, I had to work 1,000 years to get 1 year's worth of residual income, and that doesn't really work out. So that led me into real estate because obviously rentals are a great way of doing residual income. And we started the first flipping company in 11. The rental company was actually created later in that same year. And really since then, it was just building capital through flips to buy more rentals. And then once we had a nice little base of rentals, leveraging it out through financial options, mostly loans with banks, to be able to keep, growing the thing and spreading it out. And that's really what we've been doing for the last decade or so.
Awesome, Joe. And, I believe you've all been given certain gifts in this life. These gifts have been given to be a blessing, help to others. Maybe go back to your 20-year-old self. What do you think the one or two gifts that you were given, and how do those help how you help people today?
I definitely know. I knew I know how to sell. I think that that's the number one gift that I had. I had the ability of being able to be told no and still coming back. And whether you call that resilience or stupidity, because it really could have been either one at that point, I had it. And I would do cold calling like crazy. And I had fallen in love with the commission life when I was originally selling knives for all those people who used to sell Cutco cutlery back when they were in college. Hey, let's let a random college kid show up with sharp things and sell you them. So obviously it was a skill set that I developed. I think those were the most important things: was living the commission life, falling in love with it, and being able to just flat out communicate and deal with rejection. I think those kind of three umbrellas were the most important things I had at that point.
Excellent. Love it. That's great. These are great abilities, great gifts, and great opportunities to help more people and make some cash along the way. Mm-hmm. Cool. So let's dive right into building recurring income streams. So Joe, what's the number one secret to building recurring income streams?
You need to figure out which model you want to go into. So basically any sale comes with two options on a spectrum. Either you're getting a lot of money up front right now, life's going to be awesome. That's your typical, we went to McDonald's, I gave them a burger, now I got a nice little check back. Or we went into a very long run less payment each time, like the way your mortgage company is. You just get a little bit of money each time. Eventually it adds up to the full 6 figures, 7 figures of your mortgage. So you need to figure out where you want to be on that spectrum. Obviously, having a lot of little payments is great, especially once you've accumulated a ton of them. But the problem is for most people in the beginning is that doesn't bring in enough today to keep me alive. So you need to figure out that balance of what keeps us the lights on today and keeps my life functioning correctly while I still can start building the driveway of residual income for the rest of my life. So it starts with incredible money discipline on yourself personally and for your business, and actually having everything written down and knowing what the plan is. Because the best way to say it is, if you have the option of choosing which payment stream you're receiving, fill up what keeps me alive today, and then immediately, as soon as you can, start building that driveway for the future of, recurring revenue.
Excellent. So figure out which model you want, upfront bigger amounts versus smaller recurring amounts, and or a mixture of both. And then also have super disciplined money habits and written plans. Is that a fair summary on the first one? Excellent. What's the number 2 secret to building recurring income streams?
Know what you're good at and hire people for what you're not. I see so many people that want to enter into the landlording world because, let's face it, it's kind of the textbook model when you think of recurring income. Tenants pay you a check every month. Life is good. The problem is that the vast majority of people out there have no idea how to be a landlord. And that's true for really any form of residual income. It does bleed into the discipline of money that I mentioned in the first answer. But know what your strengths are, know what your weaknesses are, and bring in equity partners, key part being equity partners, to be with you on this journey.
Excellent. That's pretty straightforward. Know what you're good at, hire the who, don't be the how, and hire those stuff that you're not good at. Great. What's the number 3 secret to building recurring income streams?
Be incredibly judgmental.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, well, there's lots of ways that it's going to be applicable to whatever your system is. But because you're effectively trusting people to keep their word down the road and to keep paying you, whether they're signing up for a service that you're selling, Pandora or whatever it might be, or they're being your tenants, you ultimately are building a relationship of trust with these people down the road that they're going to keep their word. And you need to be judgmental of who actually will and who won't.
Excellent. Back to number 2, by the way, know what you're good at and hire what you're not. What was the biggest hire that you felt like was the big domino that, man, as soon as you got that hire or delegated that big rock off of your plate, that it opened up your business to grow at another level?
So for my world, it was essentially prospecting, because whether that be, I've had a lot of different people and a lot of different companies I've created because of who the prospecting partner is. But I know in the sales spectrum, there's basically 3 parts of a sales cycle. You got to get people to come into the door to your donut shop. You got to have them give you money for the donuts, and then you have to give them the quality donuts on the back end. And I know for myself that I'm very good in that middle one, communicating with people, getting contracts going and forth. We're going to give you money, and then we're going to give you a bunch of donuts later. The part that I hated and I'm not the best at was that prospecting part, filling up my calendar, making sure it was full. Now, thankfully, there's a lot of people that are the exact opposite of me. They love filling up the calendars, but they don't want to see anyone in person ever. And once we found out how to start connecting myself with those people, we created a bunch of businesses as a result of that, all with this aim of creating income through real estate. And I got to say, that was the number 1 for me thing personally, was find people that want to do that, give them a cut of the action, and keep myself busy.
Excellent. So the attract, convert, and deliver part of it. What was your number 1 secret of finding that person or that trait? What's that trait, or the person who's going to be the prospector or the attraction person? What was the secret to figuring that out?
Honestly, I fell into it. They found me first. There was a couple of guys who were doing this nationally. I realized that the joy of the internet, you don't have to live by me. In fact, actually, probably one I've done the most deals with. I've only met him twice in my life. He was coming up from Florida to go to Toronto, and we just happened to stay here overnight in Pittsburgh one night. We had a lunch, and that was it. So they stumbled into me. But once I realized how profitable this was, how much better my life was, I started actively hunting it. And I just did it simply as putting out feelers on Facebook, because at the time that was our number 1 way of getting leads. was through Facebook ads. Now it's much more nuanced and diversified than that. It's also more than just Facebook out there. But that kind of dates myself, I guess, with that answer itself. But that's how I did it. Was I basically made the template of who that partner was, and was like, how can I find this exact same guy again? And I made some ads for it, and a lot of interviews, and we found a couple of guys that we wanted to work together.
Excellent. What's their kind of their daily routine? Are they X amount of cold calls, X amount of social media posts, X amount of are they just taking the initial call? So you're already doing the advertising, they just take the initial qualifying call. Walk us through kind of that role.
So the thing they all have in common is they're all system builders, which I am too, which kind of makes it really nice. They are themselves actually not involved in any of the aspects of it, except for making sure that it's funded to keep rolling. So some of them do direct mailers that call into a call center. Some of them do the internet leads. Instagram is huge. Obviously, Facebook's a big part of life, where they just fill it out. Again, then a call center, pre-qualifies them. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they just created this structure. Some of them just ran marketing companies already, and it was a natural fit there. The only difference was instead of paying them per lead generated, I paid them on the back end profit created, which makes them more invested, because rather than them just having me fill the calendar with maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, because they know they're getting a real cut of the back end profit, they want to make sure it's going to be good, valuable leads I'm getting, which really has been, I think, to me, part of the game changer. Am I paying more per lead? Yes, absolutely. But am I getting more money out of it? Yeah. So why worry about the cost per lead if at the end of the day I'm making more money out of it?
How do you find a connection, equitable connection for, amount of value brought and, whatever's delivered, and to keep, the person who's converting versus the person who's attracting? Like, how do you think through that, or how have you adapt it maybe along the way?
Yeah, so it's basically, it's a negotiation. How much do I got to pay to have you on board and all that. But basically, we break it into one of two categories before we start. Are we going to do this based upon the net or based upon the gross? And I think that that's a very big question, because if I'm paying you based upon the net of your expenses, I'm way less interested in doing that arrangement, because I want you to figure out how to make the best system for you. And I don't really want to be involved in it. So the guys that just want to get paid, hey, forget about how much I spend to build my system. We're just going to figure out based upon what we make here and split it up the percentage that way. That's much more attractive to me individually. To me, it shows a strong degree of confidence in that they're going to be able to build something well, and they're going to be good at it. So that's to me a big red flags, or the opposite of red flag, big indicator of someone that I want them to do that. If they're willing to say, I'm going to build this, don't worry about how I build it, Joe, your calendar is going to be full. Then we're going to start cutting checks later in life. Got
it. So they're like self-initiative. They're like basically their own mini entrepreneur, and they're going to go out, build a system, build a team, build whatever. Right. And they're like, You're like, you take care of all that. You deliver the potential prospect, and then Joe takes over and helps to convert and deliver it. Right. And then that is what the cut comes. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Each of us have a very important half of the business. We treat each other as equal partners as a result. And then that's how we go from it.
Cool. Very cool. That's excellent. Now let's shift a little bit into tax, right? Because you've done some real estate, you've done maybe some 1031 exchanges, and perhaps you've had maybe sold a business or something, or going to be. And there's
I've done that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's shift into what's the biggest frustration when it comes to, capital gains tax when you're exiting businesses or real estate and or the 1031 exchange?
Yeah. So in my world, going back to how we had that initial conversation, how to create the buyout, that was where it really started with how much do I need to get paid today to keep it going? And then essentially I self-financed my own exit for the partners that stayed in that first rental company. And so from a tax perspective, learning how to do that correctly was a nightmare, because I knew the structure I wanted to do. I wanted to get paid, enough up front where it was worth it to me, I guess is the way to put it. Well, there was also enough that they still owed me where it would be a nice couple checks for a couple of years. So from a pure, looking at the tax accounting standpoint, I probably did that as wrong as you possibly could have. And this would have been in like my third year of doing this. So we're talking 2014, so 8 years ago or so. And like I said, I walked into the most expensive way I could have cut those checks to the IRS. And it was at that point where I sat down with my accountant, who's also an attorney, which is great. And we just hammered out a lot of new structures for my business of how to do things and how to do things correctly, the kind of shells to put them in, to really to the point where I admit that it's not my expertise, despite the accounting degree. But I do know the essence of what he's doing, the legal of how it's all done. That's all I look at is what I pay him for. You know what I mean? So, but the remarkable part of me, and this was the thing that I didn't understand, and I wish I would have understood then, with all of the different LLCs and those structurings and the trusts and all that we end up getting created to put these in my head, before I ever went through them, my thought was, this is going to have to affect the way I run my business in a day-to-day operation. And in reality is, until it comes time to actually doing our taxes, it doesn't apply at all. Like it has not affected the way that I operate, whether it be with my partners or with my clients at all. There's a couple of different forms they sign. For instance, whenever I'm doing a rent to own with a tenant, we do it a little bit differently than I had before. But other than that, it's basically just beautiful, and it's set up really well. So that was my fear going into the how to really build the tax shelters, as I heard them. It was like, it's going to change the way I do my business, and it didn't at all. And it made me really glad that it was there. Also made me really upset. Like, why didn't I look into this sooner? Like, all the money I throw away and I gave to the IRS, like, we could have done something about this. It could have been much better.
Excellent. Yeah. So just hiring the who, not being the how again. And then also just wishing you would have set up some structures sooner in a way that, not realizing that it's really not going to affect the way you're running your business. You just have to have it all structured in a certain way. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Have you ever done a 1031 exchange before, by the way?
We have. Again, knowing what I know now, I would not have done it with that particular property. But it is what it is, and moving on.
When you say that, I'm curious, like what was the story there? What made it not a great deal?
It wasn't actually anything to do with the houses at all. It had to do with the fact that we were trying to dissolve that entity. Like, the partner just wanted to be done. And the fact that we were taking a carryover and putting it into more, it just extended the relationship when it shouldn't have been extended. I mean, that's, I guess, the way to put it.
Yeah, there's a thing called the whole entity must move, right? So if you're going to do a tax deferral, that means the partners typically have to stay married, if you will. And sometimes partners want to separate for different reasons, right? They want to go their separate ways. They have another investment opportunity. But all of a sudden, oh no, we can't defer the tax via a 1031 exchange unless all of us stay together, generally speaking. By the way, we have a solution for that. It's called a deferred sales trust. If anyone's married, anyone's worried about staying married to a partner and want to separate, we just had a $13 million deal in San Diego, and it was 4 partners. And one of them just wanted to pay his tax, so he paid it. The other 3 didn't want to do a 1031 exchange because they develop properties, car washes. They buy land for about 500, develop it for about $3.5 million, and they sold it for $13 million. And so they're like, we don't want to go buy something for $13 million and all stay together. Can we go our separate ways? And the answer is yes. So each of them can get a deferred sales trust, not to be confused with the Delaware statutory trust, defer all their tax, and they can still go into deals of their own or with each other if they want to, but they don't have to. They can be passive retired, which one of them is he's a little older, wants to kind of retire. The other ones are younger and still want to be entrepreneurial. But the point is, it's like Netflix. It's very flexible, and versus like a Blockbuster that's pretty rigid. So if you want to learn more about that, anyone who's listening, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That being said, Joe Rockey Jr., are you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you can go back to your 20-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget and make sure to tell yourself to do?
The answer would be call up Dan Hudock sooner, because he's the one who ended up taught me how to sell correctly.
What's the one thing he taught you that you was like, that was like a big aha click moment for you?
Everything. He basically taught me how every person who tried to teach me how to sell was doing it completely wrong, until I was like, this is the way it should be done. It was no longer high pressure. I felt better about myself in the process. My tenant or my clients felt much happier on the other side. There was no more pressure sales. There was no more any of the negative things associated with salespeople. That's what I had been taught. And he told me how to do it completely differently and do it much better, where we all were better off for it.
Excellent. Number one book you've recommended the most in the past year?
Extreme Ownership by Yako.
Excellent. Great book. Question number 3. What are you most curious about right now?
I'm most curious about how to create electricity.
Yeah, like just Thomas Edison. You just want to geek out with him or what?
Pretty much, yeah. Tesla
Cool.
would actually be preferred, but the core concept.
You and Elon? Yeah, that's cool. My brother just did the Tesla solar on his house here in California. And it's, he just went directly to Tesla and did the whole thing. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. He's trying to talk me into it. We're in a little more cost-effective place than his energy that he pays for, but still might be worth it. Next question is this: number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
I don't know if it's, well, I guess it definitely is a theme. It's not a quote, but I try to basically live the leadership through 4 prisms, if you will. It has to do with having to do with the podcast Father and Joe, where we talk about the virtues that will keep yourself as a better person, to have better relationships with other people. But basically, I try to live through prudence, basically becoming more intelligent about what I'm doing, courage in the business contest, speaking up when you have something inside you that you got to figure out how to get out. Temperance, realizing I'm not the end all be all. You kind of use the example of don't be the or figure out who to work with. That's what temperance is, knowing I'm not good at everything. And the most important one is justice. Treat people based upon what they actually are doing. And that's it, based upon their actions. And that's it. And whenever we hire people, we don't even look at the names on the resume. We actually have it blocked out. All we see is the last 4 recent jobs and what they did there. So, and then when they're in the job, obviously, just are you producing or are you not? And that's one of the things that I'm really glad with how we create our pay structure to people. We don't pay people hourly for basically anything. It's all tasks driven. Depending on what your job is, the task is different, obviously. But did you accomplish this task? Was it to a satisfactory quality? It's basically a 2 little quick multiplier effect. It was a B level quality for this task. Multiply the 2 together, you get this. Obviously, A levels get paid more, and it kind of creates their own little incentive where people will figure out the best way to go through their lives efficiently. Again, am I paying more people on an hourly rate than I would be otherwise? Absolutely. Am I getting a much better quality and consistency of quality and speed done? Yes. So is it worth it? Yes.
Excellent. Great wisdom. Love it. Last question. After all your success building the business you've built, helping the people you've helped, how do you stay centered? What's the number one habit you practice to stay centered in your values and stay encouraged to charge forward to reach even higher heights?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously recording Father and Joe and talking to a priest all the time really does help. It really does center you. I mean, obviously the process of going to church as well does that. Just having a stable force that just says, hey, it's not about you, that there's more than you going on here, and kind of having these type of mentalities repeated to yourself on a weekly basis is a big deal.
Beautiful. Love it, Joe. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, what's the best place for them to find you?
Well, you can find me, like I said, at Father and Joe. That's on every single audio-based podcast. You can find us on our football show, which is Local Football Flavor, where we talk to local fans, see what's going on with their team. Because everyone's had this experience of a national pundit being wrong about your team. Well, guess what? The truth is it's happening to all of them. So why don't we talk to fans and find out what's really going on? It's really helpful for betting and knowing about your fantasy team. And then if anyone wants to reach out to me on a professional level about potentially being a partner or something like that, we have an email set up specifically for that. It's 412homes@gmail.com. It's not really creative. 412 is Pittsburgh's area code. So it's 412homes@gmail.com.
Amazing, Joe. Thanks for being on the show, and encourage you to keep using your gifts of selling and community and the ability to be resilient and have grit to hear no, and to keep creating connections and helping more people. And I also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, also stream on Expert CRE Secrets, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing way to exit cryptocurrency, businesses, real estate, primary homes, really anything that's highly appreciated, and you're looking at huge capital gains taxes. We want to be here to help you out. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to learn more about that. And again, thanks so much for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe. Please also check out the book. It's coming out soon, Building a Tax Deferral Exit Strategy. We have Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book, which is going to be really cool, and others as well that are very, very smart. So appreciate you guys listening, watching, and all the support out there. And